Good afternoon, everyone. I know that in our publicity we talked about a 59-minute meeting, and really like to try to stay to that as much as possible. So welcome to everyone, and I'm pleased with the turnout this afternoon. I want to begin with a prayer, and the prayer that I've chosen today is from the Notre Dame Book of Prayer, and it's entitled A Lenten Psalm of Longing. I thank you, O God, for the warming of the winds that bring a melting of the snow, for daylight hours that daily grow longer and richer in the aroma of hope. Spring lingers beneath the horizon as approaching echoes of Easter ring in my ears. I lift up my heart to you, beloved, in this season of Lent that gently sweeps across my sluggish and sleeping heart, awaking me to a deeper love for you. May the wind of the Spirit that drove Jesus into the desert, into the furnace of prayer, also drive me with a passion during the Lenten season to enkindle the fire of my devotion in the desert of Lenten love. Birds above on migratory wings signal to an inner migration, a message that draws me homeward bound on spirit's wings to the heart of my beloved. May I earnestly use this Lenten season to answer the inner urge to return. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And again, welcome everybody. I know we've called this the state of the parish, so I'm going to begin with the state of the parish. And it's really not a view from the pew, but it's the pastor's perspective, I guess, for the state of the parish. And I want to start with a letter grade. With the school in the parish, it's easy for me to relate to that. So I gave the state of the parish a B+. I think it's very healthy, and yet there's room to improve and grow and develop. So there's a lot of good things. I think that as a pastor looking back and looking forward, there have been a lot of things that have happened over the last several years. So I want to go back just a little bit. We're almost 2 years to the day when we did our last Mass in this church before we started shutting everything down. And the pandemic changed and challenged so many of the things that we took for granted and the things that were just kind of routine for us. And we had to adapt, maybe step out of our comfort zones a little bit to get the message of the gospel out to maybe a different audience, but to an audience to reassure them that we were here, we were listening, we were praying with and responding to the needs. And one of the things that come to mind when I think of 2020 was the commercial that was on TV that had a picture of Satan walking up to a woman and said, #2020, and she just kind of demurely says, just call me 2020. And they're sitting on a bench as the world comes to an end with fireballs from the heavens. And there were just so many things that happened in 2020, or didn't happen. We had 5 weddings that year, 5 weddings. We had 31 baptisms. We had 36 deaths in the parish that year. That's 1 death every 10 days. You quickly do the calculation. And one of the tough things in the midst of all of that was, how do you do funerals? Because we were limited to the size of a congregation that could be present. And normally they said 10. And that included the choir, the pastor, and maybe 1 other minister. So a family of 7. And at the same time, we attempted to meet the needs and maybe kind of tweak the rules a little bit for ourselves. For example, one day we had a request. A family had lost a 20-something-year-old son, rather tragically. And they wanted to come here and pray before they went to the cemetery. And so Gregory played. I sat here. We allowed the immediate family, one pew, and we probably had about 15 others scattered throughout the church. And you know that we were still learning how to deal with things in real time, but it was hard not to reach out and embrace a family in a moment of need. And I felt like when the family called on us, we were able to respond in a way that I think was very, very pastoral. So that's one of the things that it taught me, was to bend but not to break in the midst of everything that was going on. And one of the beautiful things, again, I think, from my own ministerial experience, priesthood experience, was I developed a relationship with one of the chaplains at Baptist Health, Chaplain Dale Maccabee. And one day he called and he said, "Father Scott, we've got a 93-year-old here that just got some bad news. Could you come up and anoint?" And that was during the lockdown. And I said, "Can I get in?" And he said, "I'll get you in." And when I went up and took care of that Catholic patient, he said, "We have another Catholic patient over here. Would you come?" And I said, "Yes, I will." But I said, "I have a parishioner on Park Tower. Can I go?" And suddenly I was in the hospital a lot more than even I expected to be. And I think if you were to talk to people like Marky or Donna, that when Chaplain Dale calls, I'm over there pretty quickly. And I think part of that was we had a seminarian with us that summer. And you all may remember Dustin Hungerford. He didn't have any responsibilities here in the parish, but he was doing CPE at the hospital. And with Dustin there, it made it a little easier for me with the chaplain's office to get in to minister to the Catholics who were experiencing emergencies and to our own people at various times. And I don't think that's breaking any kind of confidence. It was just one of those things that we were able to do and respond, I think, accordingly. I think a lot of things in our school, putting up plexiglass and all those things that we had to do early on, I was amazed. I know people were frightened and people were scared, but it was a time when I think everybody adapted in an amazing sense of selfless giving in service to something greater than themselves. And it was remarkable from my perspective to see how Jeff and Morgan and the teachers in our school and the teachers' aides all responded to keeping the children safe. And there was a learning curve. I realized, suddenly this class has 4 out, this class has 10 out, this teacher, and everything seemed to be okay in the long run. 2020, it was kind of amazing for me to look back and then again move forward. 2021, things started to move and improve a little bit, at least on the horizon. The news got a little better and brighter, and we suddenly had a vaccine, and I think many of us were moving and doing all those things. I remember the day that our school went and got their vaccine. I had 2 COVID deaths that day, 2 funerals. I didn't get my shot that day, and I was so mad. I was so mad. And it was my dad's best friend was the early funeral, and a parishioner from Mount Washington in the second funeral. And I was like, oh gosh, I wanted that shot, that vaccine so badly. And I got it, and now I've got my booster. But 2021 came, things started to improve, and then we had those little variants that started to appear. And the teachers that are all here, and the teachers' aid, you all know we bend and not break, and social distance in the church, and all that stuff, wearing masks, and now the positivity rate has dropped below 7% here for us locally. And so things are, I think, getting better. But weddings in 2021, we had 10 weddings here in the parish. I had 5 more outside of the parish. Covington, Owensboro, New Haven, other places. We had 33 deaths. That's 1 death every 11 days. Think about it. We're up to 51 baptisms last year. And so we're starting to schedule baptisms on a more frequent basis. I'm still not comfortable with parents handing me their child until I think the positivity rate drops even a little bit lower. And once that happens, we'll get back in the pool again. We've gone old school with baptisms. You just hold your baby over that font, and I baptize you in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And we rock on with that. Even the weddings that we've celebrated over the last 2 years have taught us to be a little bit flexible. If a family shared that, they had struggled, or there was an illness and things needed to be moved up, we flexed as best we could and made things happen for them within the boundaries of the church. So a lot of good things. And then a lot of things started to happen again within the parish last year. People started to come together, prayer groups, Bible study, the mulch ministry outside happening. Our church grounds look beautiful. The garden grotto with the image of Mary out there. Funny thing about weddings here now, a lot of brides go out and have their picture made in the garden grotto because it's one of, if not the most beautiful, it's one of the most beautiful spots on our campus. And Dan's out there blowing all the bird poo off before the weddings, so it's a beautiful spot for a photo opportunity. So a lot of good things have happened. A lot of changes. Life moves on and things happen. And so looking back, the faithfulness of the founding members of our parish, 72 years ago, a strong foundation was laid here as they carved us out of Holy Trinity Parish so many years ago. And as we've tried to keep the buildings up to date and all of that, and you know the history probably better than I do. When the parish opened and the school opened at the same time, we had 230 kids in a school. It was an amazing act of faith. And all of those things that happened along the way, eventually the convent was built, and then the rectory was built, and so forth and so on. And then the renovation of the church. I think around 1997, 98, I'd just been named pastor in Mount Washington, and somebody at Ascension was looking for a priest to do a wedding here at Our Lady of Lourdes. And somebody said, well, call Father Scott in Mount Washington. Maybe he's free that night. And I was. And the church wasn't finished. And suddenly, we weren't facing this way. We were facing this way. I think I had one of the earliest weddings in the new church as it unfolded, and it was a family from Ascension. So it's kind of amazing the tie-in along the way. Of course, when I arrived as pastor 10 and a half years ago, I lived at Waterford Place because there was no room in the inn. And the rectory next door was a retirement home for the Resurrectionist community. And the house over here was a convent for the Sisters of Charity of Nazareth. And the house behind that was a convent for the Sisters of Charity of Cincinnati. And it was flexing again as the new pastor. But eventually I had said, I'm one of those that likes to live on campus. So I broached the subject to start coming back to the big house. And that was a very big house for one person. So in my prayer book, I have a little card, one of the Benedictine sisters that I knew. And I approached her. She was here for Mass one night. She taught at the model school. And I said, are the Benedictines still looking for a big house to bring together all the Benedictine sisters that serve here in the city of Louisville? And she said, we are. And I said, well, let me show you this house. And we went over before Mass. And I said, if you think it would meet the needs, go back to the monastery and tell the sisters. And long story short, they came, the leadership, and we met. And they said, well, where are you going to move? And I said, to the little house over here. And then everything started to happen. And so that's kind of the building, all of that right now. And eventually when Sister Betty and Sister Lisa moved out of the 500 house, I went over one night and just started pulling wallpaper off the wall. And as I pulled wallpaper off the wall, I thought, this is a neat old building. And I thought, I think I might like to live here. This is the original priest house. And Father Oz said to me, when he came once for a funeral, he said, Scott, if you go up those steps to the second floor, that room at the top of the steps, I said, yes. I said, that's my TV room upstairs. He said, well, that was my everything room. So it's just a quick little history behind the scenes of the buildings of our campus. So now we pivot to the future. And what does it look like? There's still a lot of growth going on, a lot of folks coming into our community. Right now, there's just a lot of different faces in our congregation on the weekend. I don't know if you've noticed it, but we're getting a lot of visitors who are showing up for masses, which is a wonderful thing. So we try to open those doors wide and say, welcome to Our Lady of Lourdes. And I think that's been a hallmark of Our Lady of Lourdes over the years, is the hospitality they've shown to people, especially visitors who come into our worship. And then I think once they visit, they like what they see. They like what they hear and what they experience. Everything liturgical, I think, kind of feeds a lot of our visitors, so that then they'll knock on the door and eventually ask for a registration packet. Or maybe it's something that we've done liturgically, maybe through funerals and the like, that brings them back anyway. So as we pivot to the future, what does it look like, and what does the next 70 years look like? It's your shoulders now that maybe the next generation we'll talk about has left a legacy behind for the future. And I think you're here because you've read things that you've either received in the mail or you've read in the bulletin about kind of the future goals. I think about 6 years ago, I think Tim Krause, I saw him, Tim's parish council chair, and someone came to me and asked the question, where can we do a bereavement meal? And that was really a stumping type question, because when school's in session, most of our funerals are done either at 10 a.m. or at noon. We can't do a funeral bereavement meal in the school building because we can't mix the populations because of safety concerns. And so one night we convened a meeting with Mark Trier and Don Gerlich, and I think Vic Brian Hayden and Jennifer Bars, and we met in one of the classrooms, and we began discussing, looking at the school building, could we utilize it some way to provide a space to do bereavement meals. And I think that the only thing that we came up with that night was we discovered more questions about safety and locking down the school a little tighter than solving the bereavement meal problem. So fast forward a couple years. Back before 2020, we sent out invitations to lots of folks to come together to brainstorm. Again, kind of focused on what does the future look like the next 5 years for the future of Our Lady of Lourdes. And I think over the next so many days, when people responded, we had listening sessions where we would have anywhere from 8 people, upwards of 22 people, in about 8 to 10 meetings where we would just meet and listen and gather the data to a response of certain questions. How do you see the parish in the next, and fill in the blanks, and they did. And shortly after that, we began compiling that information. I think that was Doug's task, and you were doing all of that work. And that's Doug over here in the blue. You don't know Doug Woes. His wife Laura teaches in our school, so there you go. And then shortly after that, we did a Pulse of the Parish, where we asked people to respond, maybe a survey monkey. And we were collecting all of that data, and then COVID. I mean, that's how and so we paused everything. But then last spring, as things started to seem much more open and positive, I went to Gregory and I said, we need to revive, those questions, what the folks asked or thought about for the future, that survey monkey and the Pulse of the Parish, and start looking at the future needs of Our Lady of Lourdes. And I said, but we need to be professional. So let's call a professional. And so we called Mark Trier and JRA and said, this is what we want to do. We want to look at the future needs. And these are some of the things that we think are needs for the future. And looking at the things that had been shared and responded to, then we began responding and sharing that with Mark. He's writing down everything and so forth and so on, and he took it all down. And so, kind of the funny thing along the journey is, as many of you all know, Mark's a member of our parish. Usually, I think it's a Saturday night person, back where the Bevins are sitting right there. It's kind of where Mark and his family would sit. But Mark is now retired. As of, I think, New Year's Eve, Mark retired, and Tim is with us from JRA tonight, this afternoon. And so we gave all that information, and Mark and Summer came and just started dialoguing and doing some mock-ups with us for the future of the parish. And basically, ladies and gentlemen, that's where we are today, this afternoon. We brought you here to talk about the future of the parish. And so I guess with all of these, you all are probably waiting for me to start flipping the boards. And one other thing I would say, you've got some little forms about asking questions. If you've already thought of one, we hope to eventually answer all of them, probably through our bulletin or our Bearcat Blast. So if you've got a question, go ahead and write it down. We're going to collect those before this meeting is over and try to answer a few of them before we leave here today, but the others will get answered eventually on social media through the parish. So one of the first things that we talked about, we've talked about a lot of things, but when we talked about our school, and this is not a secret, we had a teacher in our school that loved Our Lady of Lourdes. And she loved the Archdiocese of Louisville, and she loved St. Meinrad Archabbey and School of Theology. And lo and behold, that very humble woman had a lot of money, and she gifted Assumption High School, St. Meinrad Archabbey, Our Lady of Lourdes, you name it, Miss Lawler. And maybe she taught your kids, and maybe your kids have stories to tell about her. So right now we have received, I think, close to $800,000 from the estate of Miss Lawler. And that became the seed money for anything that we thought we wanted to do for the future of our school. And that's really been, talk about a gift from heaven, a generous spirit. Early on in my time here, she would sub in the office. And so I did get to meet her before she passed away. And just, I didn't know her well. I have to say that. But, no, thank you, Miss Lawler. So we should remember her. The other things financially, we've been saving money the last couple of years. Our school legacy and our parish legacy funds have nice little wads of money that we would use for this considered project. And we've also reached out to the Archdiocese about the selling of the little white bungalow that we bought several years ago, because I just don't think that little white bungalow is going to do what we hoped it would do for the future. It's a very, very small building, a large lot, but a very small building. And Brian Reynolds told me last Friday that I should be getting a letter soon from the Archbishop. So I don't know if that's Archbishop Kurtz or Archbishop Fobb. I don't know in between who gets to make that decision. But we should be hearing about that property soon. So if you come down Breckenridge Lane, one of the things you would first see if you turned onto our property as we plan for the future would be this. And I know eventually when we're finished, you can come up and take a look. But if you were to turn into our driveway, the priest's house that was there, where the sisters live now, would be torn down. And this would become the parish office building, so that when you came onto our campus, you wouldn't have to ask somebody, where's the parish office? It's going to be right there up front. And part of it, when you come up here afterwards to look at it, you're going to see a very large meeting room here on the front. Now, I know this is still a work in progress, but this would be the spot where we could do bereavement meals. There would be a warming kitchen in this facility. And again, this is not final. This is just a rendering of where we're at right now. And it might be turned a little bit, because when you come out from a funeral, and a lot of folks today are choosing cremation. We're not going to the cemetery. We would go immediately into the parish office for a bereavement meal. And so there would be an intimate connection between the church and the building, so we could bring grieving families in for a social and a time to share stories and a warm meal on parish property. And our parish offices would be moved over here. This would be the main entrance on the side here, and we would be on the back side of this office. And so really what we're creating, if you will, is a kind of a church part of the campus and a school part of the campus. And I think in some of the maybe other renderings with the electronic stuff that we might have eventually, you can see that better instead of on these renderings. The other picture of this is from what we call the funeral entrance, is how it would look. And we're still, again, debating how to get a hearse under the awning in inclement weather. Do we have to tweak it some more? And so here's the main entrance into the office building, but using the slopes and curves of the church building to create this building as an architectural pleasantry on Breckenridge Lane, using etched glass or stained glass to help it blend and convey a sense of church, a faith community to the larger community in St. Matthews, in Jefferson County. So that just shows the parish office building and moving it from the back to the front of the campus. One of the things, too, that would be addressed, and one of the things that those of you who have children in our school, one of the things that we've learned is people fly through our campus. I don't know how to say that. People are disrespectful of the safety concerns of our campus. And it's my hope as pastor that with some of this, we will begin locking down sections of our campus that you're not going to be able to drive through from Breckenridge Lane to Macon. You're going to be stopped. You're not going to be able to get through. A funeral procession can get through, but you're not. We're just going to have to tweak how we see that from a kind of a drone perspective, that the front side of this campus will be the church side and the back side will be the school campus. And one of the things that will be addressed eventually is the parking will be expanded on the front side of the church. So it will be double parking, and again, I know those are things that are coming, and the architects and the city and permits and all that stuff will have to be addressed at some point. But certainly we're setting that in motion for the future. And one of the things that will be addressed, and I don't know if I can show you here, this is the, yes, so I live over there right now. And so on this, my house will be here. And this is my side yard in the future. And that creates more parking for the church. What we would have up here are 80 additional parking spots for this front of the campus. And hopefully for daily mass and funerals, you won't have to park on the school side. So that way we hope to alleviate some of those issues of people flying through our parking lot. I mean, I saw some people nodding their heads. If you've been out there, people book, and they don't care if you're in a collar or not. They just, they don't. So that's one of the things we're hoping to address, with this side of the campus for the future. And I think it's coming. So that's just the church part of it all, the parish. Thank you, Steve. So the school. We've looked at a number of things within our school. How do we make sure our school, I don't want to say, it's state-of-the-art, not competitive, but state-of-the-art, and it's updated. And things are taken care of, like heating and ventilation and windows and doors that no teacher would have to walk outside to lock. I don't know all the ins and outs of our school doors, but it's been a safety concern for some time. And so one of the things that we've looked at is taking all of the offices off the second floor and putting them on the first floor. Again, when you visit the school side of the campus, when you saw the building, you would know exactly there's the school office right there. And that's where we don't have to hunt for it again. You're not going to have to go up a set of stairs and you'll have to be buzzed in, but not on the second floor. And so hopefully in the future, on that back side of the property, there would be a one-story addition that houses all of the school offices on one level. From the counselor's office to the principal, the vice principal, storage, all those things. It would eventually mean an updating of our cafeteria that has not been touched in about 125 years, and a fixing up of what we call the adult space to become part of the cafeteria, as well as half of it would become a conference room. And so, and you would, once school started, the only way in would be to be buzzed in by Vicki or Pat through more of a vestibule than open doors. And just making sure, again, for safety reasons, that we've got a controlled space. Now, we do lose one door in the design. And so we would have to create another means of egress at some point, some way to get people out in the event of an emergency. And I think that's still a work in progress. But this is what the addition would look like. So, and again, like over here, that we have the slope. This is, I guess you call it tiered, and I call it a slope. You could put a person in a wheelchair and get them down pretty quickly to the main entrance of our school building. Again, mine's more creative than mine. We'll take care of all of those air conditioning units and things on there and put them in a nice place where they look nice and neat for the future. But this is what we would do to welcome people into our school, the school part of our campus, for the future. And it would also entail, as we look to the future, trying to be proactive, that we have a summer festival, that when we take care of our parking, that we put islands out there, we run electric to the islands and put some lights out there. So that helps us plan for the future and future things for your kids' future out there. It's trying to think of all the little things, I think, over the years maybe we've left off of a plan. And again, it's not my mind. Every now and then I get creative, but not like that. And so Jeff's office, Morgan's office, Vicki and Pat's little desk would disappear. And on the second floor, that space would become a maker space for STEM and development of the science, technology, engineering, and math type programs in the spaces there. And so this is just what a rendering of what that space would look like. And again, once we're kind of finished, you can come up and mingle and look around pictures. But it's also taking the second floor and on that side of the building, adding bathrooms on that end of the building where we don't have facilities. We might have a one-seater here and a one-seater there, but we need more than that. That's where the biggest kids in our building on the third floor are, and they've got, anyway. They have to walk all the way down to the other end of the hall, and God forbid we had a stomach virus go through there. I don't know how we would cope with things, but it's looking at the future and trying to make sure that everything is up to date as we start to plan for the next 75 years. And I'm sure that, the next pastor will come in here and say, well, maybe in 15, 20 years we're going to plan to do X, Y, and Z for the future. But I think for the immediate needs of the parish, we're starting to address them in creative ways that look to the future. And I think initially when we were talking, and this has now been, I don't know, almost 8 months ago when we started this, the initial cost for all of this, on the high end it was 3.6, and on the low end I think 3.2. And one of the things that we also said we would like to see in the near future is then taking the current parish office building and starting to take care of some of those larger groups like the Knights of Columbus, our Scouts, and starting to look at the grill and some of the outdoor play space that some of our adults like to use. So, phase 1, phase 2, and then phase 3. And, if we raise the money, then it all moves pretty quickly. We've got a quarter, if not a third of the money already. So you can kind of think in your mind where we're kind of leading to the future. So where we're at, you've also read the annual report. So financially, we're in very good shape. One of the things I think for the future is, the future seems to be very bright, I think, for Our Lady of Lourdes. There's a spirit here that's wonderful. It's exciting. A lot of things are going on. A lot of things are starting to come out of kind of mothballs, if you will, from being shut down for a while. And that's very, very promising and exciting for me. With us today, a couple of folks, and I'm gonna get out of the way. Representing JRA is Tim Gravis, and I think Tim was introduced to us at the second to last meeting, and so I welcome him today. That if you want to get up here and share a few thoughts or words about everything for the future, and then following Tim, we have Steve Mcswain. The diocese has given us permission to go forward with the feasibility study on all of this. It's, you'd love to say that someone dropped in another $1 million to us and we can do it on our own, but probably going to include a fundraising project. And the diocese now requires a lot of steps along the way, rightly so. And so we've engaged Steve's company to work with us. And he's here as well. So, but I'm going to step aside, and Tim, if you want to step up and take a few minutes.
Thank you, Father. We began working with Mark and Father in the building committee. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the best way to enhance both the school and the parish offices and really address a lot of needs to look for the future, not only just once the building is complete, we'll be able to expand even further. As the design, we really kind of took shape, especially the parish offices. One of the things we really wanted to be able to create from an architectural perspective is kind of this deep white, that really shines from records. So you clearly know, here it is where maybe just not trying to alienate, the existing buildings, but to really don't emphasize that. And there's a lot more detailing in the design, and afterwards I can talk to you a little bit about it. But we're very excited, of where the possibilities are. Obviously focusing on the school, trying to kind of surgically, figure out how to graduate it in kind of pieces and parts. Because if that would be a challenge, and I know it's something we've got a lot of experience with. But the growth in the future that we see of both parish and all in school, it was really exciting, and I think it's really likely what the long-range planning. So, do appreciate you, inviting us here. Again, we've been working on this for really a number of years. Yes, I have been working with Mark kind of behind the scenes and then taking over once he steps away with him. So anyway, just kind of letting you know that
if you've taken the moment to write down a question, if you've got one ready, I know Gregory and Linda are in the back and they can collect them, but you can pass those to the end of the pew and we'll move forward. It gives me great joy to introduce Steve Mcswain. A pleasant surprise when we reached out to Steve's company and we met him, and his faithfulness is what touched me first. And then I checked his pedigree. I called on some of my friends who had used his company, and primarily Epiphany with Father Randy, who's a dear, dear friend of mine, and double thumbs up. So Steve Mcswain, I welcome you, and you can preach.
No. He always says that because I used to be a preacher in the Baptist tradition, but I've got no for that. That's good. But today I'm Catholic. I came to the Catholic faith about 8 vigils ago. On my Baptist stand is still set the cross-eyed. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to see so many of you who come. I'm here to lead the feasibility study. Lots of you have been through those kinds of things before, but the Archdiocese of Louisville requires us to do both interviews and a church-wide questionnaire, so we'll be doing both of them. In fact, I wanted to call attention to the fact that Linda Carter is here. Linda is my right hand, left hand, keep me between the lines. She's working with me. Some of you here have already been contacted by her and by Father about coming to the meeting will be beginning tomorrow in some interviews. So we'll be stationed somewhere here on campus, and I'll be engaging in a number of private, confidential conversations with a number of your households in the parish. And immediately when that's finished, we will make a questionnaire available to everybody online. And I think Linda's even going to have some hard copies for those that don't like to go online and do anything on the internet. But we'll have both options available for you to give us some feedback. It's really important we hear from you. I'm not wearing the hat now of a fundraiser. I'm here to listen. I'm here to invite your participation, your comments. They're all confidential. I don't share with Father personal comments that people make to me or this survey. So you can say whatever you like. We'll listen and we will respond as best we can. Now, we've come to some questions, I think now, we'll pick out a couple of these. And I know one question was already given to me. Father might want to speak to this. We're going to take about 2 or 3 questions now, but in order to stay in the time frame that we had promised we would let you out within, that's about 59 minutes. We've only got about 10 or so of those left. So we'll try to address a couple of these, but we will answer your questions. So we're collecting them now because it's important to me, it's important to the process that we respond to the questions that you have and not try to just guess at those or think that we have identified the right questions. So help us. This will take about 6 to 8 weeks, maybe not quite that long. It depends on how quickly people respond to the online survey. We'll keep Father posted and all the staff as to how they're coming in. And so we're planning on about 3 or 4 weekends, beginning in the next weekend or 2, making the questionnaire available to the church family. But we may extend that another week or 2 beyond even our time frame if it takes that to get the response. But I think we will respond quickly, and we'll get through this in the expeditious fashion. So, questions? You got some coming forward? Here's another one. I do, Father, if you'll come back up here, I've got one that was given to me. When would we start? That's probably a good one. So, do we have any? I know you won't start until the Archbishop gives approval, but we have to do the study for that first.
Well, and then, according to our diocesan guideline, you have to have between 65 and 75% of your cash in hand and pledges and so forth. So we're probably looking at a little way think that the easiest part of this process is this. And I think as soon as we get approval, then a lot of this can start outside of anytime, assuming from the builder's perspective. And I think that would be the first thing that we would tackle as a parish to do the issue of the school. So, one of the things that someone asked me is, we have 4 sisters that live in that house. And those of you who know me, somebody in particular, I love nuns. And I don't think historically they've been treated well in the church. I don't think they've been treated well by brother clergy. And so I know we've already got words of them that in the event that we do move in that direction, that the house that I currently live in would be offered to them as a rental property. And I would move into the 30-acre house, a little house. Father Tony Cecil currently brings that from 50 parish. And Father Tony is now over 8 years. He's probably going to get about 6 parishes in Little County. But that's not easy. But people probably be moving off campus. And we'll probably just hold that open for the time being, just to make sure we can do the shifting and moving in the event that we get the green light and things like that. And then the sister thing I want to live over there. I like it. It's not official over here.
But along those lines, Father, there's a couple here that have asked questions about how long you'll be here.
I answered that as I spoke to the future mother-in-law of the bride. She called me just this week and changed the wedding date. And as I told her, she's asking for a wedding in September of 2023. We're already taking in those kind of requests. And I said to her, I will put you on the church calendar, but I will not put you on my calendar. I am not the pastor. If things hold true according to our custom in the Archdiocese of Louisville, my term expires in June of 2023, and it will be around June of 2027. That's the move time for the priests in the diocese. But, ladies and gentlemen, if this isn't even the parish, it's my job to kind of position us for the future. So I would just hand off to the next pastor and say, we've done the groundwork, we've collected the money, we did it in Mount Washington, we built a new church, here's the payoff plan, and we did it 4 years ahead of schedule. Been there, done that. It's not the first rodeo. So that's the way church works. We plan for the future and we move forward. We do it in faith. So that's the good news. All right.
School staff seems to be very good, given the large amount of turnover in our parish staff, the ability to keep positions open on youth director, maintenance, parish-wide director, and director of outreach. We have a timetable for being up to full speed so we can utilize this new facility to grow our parish mission.
Everything's in motion. One of the things, we hired someone for maintenance, and that didn't work out. And so that person sought different greener pastures. Right now, a lot of folks just don't want to work. The churches we're dealing with it as well. I'm listening to my brother priest when we get together for Super Bowl party and we get ready for this NCAA basketball party. We'll get together and we'll illuminate it. If we hire somebody in your pastoral care, it's also in the past. How to bring it. And honestly, if the tree has a big bright apple from neighboring parish, couldn't call it if you come over for me. I'll shoot the plot a little bit to hire the folks that we need. So,
Current school enrollment, what is it, and what does it look like over the next 2-3 years?
Mr. Bennett, that's a question for you.
360, and our plan is to be adding about the equivalent of about 10 to 15 years over the next 5 years. Because our preschool has grown size it was just 2 years ago. And as a result, we've already seen that this upcoming school year, our kindergarten now is seeing the benefits of that growth.
That's the good news. The seed is planted and the seed is growing.
Has the present inflation environment increased? Can you all hear me in the back? Okay. Has the present inflation environment increased the cost estimates for the project?
Probably so. Yes. It's just maybe we want to go high, 3.6, or we're going to go low, 3.2. Probably be somewhere in the middle, towards the 3.6. Same exact. But again, the funny thing about it is the generosity of our parishioners. It was just a couple of months ago, shortly after couple months after this smaller period, somebody gave us an anonymous $37,000. So we shifted that towards this project as well. So along the way, it's just you come across folks that believe that their grandchildren should benefit from the things that they have, so they're investing in their grandchildren's future. So it's been a real blessing.
Has there been a core group of parish members who've been a part of the planning process and advising you?
Folks like the school, administrative staff, teachers have been part of it. I brought 3 retired teachers into my home one day for lunch and talked to them about the needs in the school. And if you want honesty, they had nothing to lose. Whatever, so they were very honest about like nature spaces and things like that, and what the needs are in our bathrooms and things like that, and updating air conditioning, all that kind of stuff, doors, windows, making it state of the art. Everybody hands down says that's what we need in our school.
Okay, one more. Any more out there?
Here's a bunch.
Oh, I'm just looking at the ones I got here in mind. Can you read them? All right, here's another one. You want me to look through those while you answer? Spaces be lost or add additional, will we get additional places?
Well, out front, there will be more parking and over here. Now, we will lose some here. And probably if we add islands with electrical and lights, we'll probably lose a few more. So it's probably going to be about where it is today. I'm guessing. But that's just me. I'm optimistic. We're going to be a couple more.
So just if you don't mind expanding on those, one of the things that we know that we are going to be addressing, especially in the back here, is clarifying some of the pickup school traffic by adding the islands and everything. That also will help some of the cut throughs. We are trying to control that back in the back, but I think we're probably less than 70 parking spaces that we're probably going to lose, but working with traffic control, and those kind of things, making these streets a lot better. In the end, anything that Father says, we definitely add spaces towards the front of the property to address parking from the church side.
One more question? Okay. chose this company and what is its name? Well, the company I'm associated with is Generis Ashley Roundtree. That's a big long name. There are actually two different firms. Ashley Roundtree is a local firm that's been around doing nonprofit fundraising work for many years in the community. Good reputation, good history. Generis is the firm I come from. Generis is an international firm with offices in about 25 states across the union. And these two companies have a joint partnership in the Archdiocese of Louisville. So when I'm doing campaigns, as I have been for the last few years, just right here in the Archdiocese, this joint partnership is the one that addresses these churches in our Archdiocese.
Would you like to say something about Jerry?
Yes, thank you. So, Jerry Architects, we've actually just this past year celebrated our 75th anniversary. We're one of the oldest, we like to say, one of the most respected architecture firms in the state. I have been with Jerry for, hang on, more than 30 years, fourth generation owner and vice president of the company now. I've been working with churches, archdiocese for nearly 30 years of my career. So hopefully our reputation exceeds what we do, and we take a lot of pride in what we do. We're very hands-on, through all this process. So one of the questions that was earlier was, how do you get here? Okay, with the design and all that stuff. We actually started with a private program, which was interviews with teacher staff, all of those. We're on the lead. We take that program and actually develop it into the design that you see here. So very good, very thorough process from the beginning. Thank you.
Well, that reveals the time. And so we begin, as church, we begin in prayer, we're going to end in prayer. So let's bow our heads. And with this, it's a prayer that we pray every time we gather on the weekends, and it's the Stewardship Prayer. So let us pray that prayer together. Our parish is composed of people like me. I help make it what it is. It will be friendly if I am. It will be holy if I am. Its pews will be filled if I help fill them. It will be prayerful if I pray. It will make generous gifts to many causes if I am a generous giver. It will bring others into its worship if I invite and bring them. It will be a parish of loyalty and love, fearlessness and faith, compassion, charity, and mercy, if I, who make it what it is, am filled with these same things. Therefore, with the help of God, I shall dedicate myself to the task of being all the things that I want our parish to be. Amen. Our Lady of Lourdes, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you all. Be careful going home.